Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Flat Earth UK Live. Joining me tonight is the host of WaykiWayki and co-host, along with Matrix Decode, of Flat Earth Rebel Outpost, Mark Knight. Welcome to Flat Earth UK Live.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Nice to be here.
Excellent to have you here, Mark. On tonight's show, we will be discussing NASA and ESA fakery, possible signs that point towards the shape of our Earth, flat Earth astrology and flat Earth astronomy, religion, synchronicity, transhumanism, and if we get time, whether or not other truthers are still relevant in light of the flat Earth movement. Not that we should be calling it a movement, apparently. So, Mark, can you start off the show by telling us, how did you find out the Earth is flat?
Hi, Nathan. I was actually in touch with Eric Debay over the years, just the odd email here and there. And he sent me his book before it was published. And I thought he was crazy. And I looked at it for a few weeks and couldn't really debunk it. I mean, it was mainly a lot of Samuel L. Rowbottom's work in there. And then I started looking and doing my own investigation that lasted maybe 3 months. And I sort of cracked it. And I was like, the more I looked into it, the more I could debunk the ball model. And the more I could sort of add weight to the flat model. And just had some sort of inner realizations as well, going back to sort of an experience I had years ago through a retreat based on dreams. And these things all fit together. And it was like, wow, yeah, this is a big lie. This is flat.
When was that exactly?
This was around last August, not the August just gone, the one before. So like, well over a year ago.
And did you get straight onto was the IFAS forum actually around then?
No, it wasn't. I started writing articles. Basically, the first one was about saying, look, we're not spinning, kind of soft. And then the next article I wrote was about, the ball being a lie. I did like 7 or 8 articles and they went pretty viral. And then I started making videos. I learned a little bit about video making and then they went viral. And it just went from there, really. I've had a lot of fun researching it and talking to people and debating. And it's like a big bone with a lot of meat on it for me. Really enjoy it.
I've had a lot of people actually say that you were the reason they woke up to flat Earth. I mean, does that make you feel good about the whole thing?
Yeah, I don't really gain much. It's nice, yeah. But I just do what I do for me, really, not for others. And if people pick up on some of my work and gain something from it, that's like a bonus. Because for me, putting stuff online's like, it's for me, and that I put it online shows that I have conviction in my word because I'm happy to put it public. It's not for an audience, it's for me to show I've got conviction in what I think and feel. And if people are reading that or watching that and getting something from that, I look at that as a bonus.
I mean, I'd like to get straight onto your most recent video selection because it's at least for the people in Europe, it's very, very relevant. Now, as I said to Jeranism, it's the same sort of thing that the people in the States get to see time and time again. But can you give us a little bit of a talk through what your not experience, but how you felt when you saw some of the most recent ESA material?
You're right. I mean, there's a lot of YouTubers in America put a lot of stuff out about NASA hoax and NASA control rooms, and all of a sudden ESA, the European Space Agency, have really upped their game. They got a fancy new website. They put a British astronaut into space with loads of media spin around him, and now it's our turn. Maybe some of us European guys, and British guys, we can start tearing ESA apart. And I did 4 or 5 ESA hoax videos. They're quite short. They're kind of fun. And I'm just looking at the control room and looking at the errors in the launch, in the docking, in the hatch opening, looking at this Tim Peake guy, this British astronaut, who I think is going to wreck it. He's just such a clown. He's making so many errors. There's a part 5 going up in the next few days to do with the spacewalk. And it's just a comedy of errors.
I mean, can you start us with the launch itself? If you assume that somebody, I mean, I know a lot of the people who are tuning into this show will be flat earthers and obviously a handful of debunkers. But if, for the sake of argument, there was people who had just tuned into the show, they had absolutely no idea what we're talking about. From the launch, can you sort of pick apart what was wrong with the most recent ESA mission?
It's just like where to start. I mean, the one for me that I pointed out was they're supposed to be going at Mach 2, which is pretty fast, you know. I mean, when you take off on an aeroplane, you get pushed back in your seat, but they're going at some stupid speed. I think it's like 2,000 miles an hour, something like this. But they're moving their hands around, they're looking at each other. One of them's writing on a piece of paper. And you wouldn't really be writing on paper. You'd have high-tech computer, you know, touchscreen things, monitors. And this is just really fake. It's really nonsensical.
Yeah, they had this sort of dangling, like, I don't know what it was, like a pendulum.
Yeah.
And from what I could see, when they started going horizontal from your footage that you showed, that didn't change. It still seemed like they were going up.
Yeah, yeah. So basically the firework was going up, but in the cockpit, this thing was dangling down. There's just so many errors. I mean, I pointed out a few errors, but people in the comment sections are adding their own things that I didn't see or didn't have the time to put in. I mean, it's just like, let's look at this footage and all together, let's just dissect it. Because a lot of people are laughing at us flat earthers, you know, which is understandable. We all laughed at some point, but we can then show them things like the ESSA footage and say, well, if you believe that, maybe we can laugh at you, and sort of turn the table round a little bit.
I mean, that's something you seem to be really good at, you know, rather than getting caught up in the flat earth hatred, you tend to just make the ball earth a bit of a joke rather than having them laugh at us. I love that.
Yeah, I think there's a gap for that. I think it's needed.
I mean, did you see the harness slip?
Yeah, I think that's in the ESSA hoax part 4 I did, where he did like, Tim Peake did a spin. It was like he's only been on the space station a few days. He does this spin and it's supposed to be 0G. It looks very harnessed anyway. And when he's towards the end of his spin, it's like he falls and gravity exists there. Well, that density, should we say.
Yeah, it's like he's strapped in perfectly fine around his crotch, if you like, and it's taking the weight with gravity affecting him. But as soon as he shifts that weight upside down, the harness literally slips, and you see it. It's not exactly subtle, is it?
Yeah, and his weight's sort of off center. But in the new part, he's flying around with his socks. Like, his socks must stink. There's just so many things that you can just pick up on. I mean, the place would absolutely stink. I mean, I was talking to Ben this morning, I think, and if you're on a long haul flight, you know, like a 10-hour flight, on the last hour or two, the plane stinks. It absolutely stinks. You want to get off. This smelly socks, smelly feet, it's like horrible energy. So this space station that they say exists is a bit like being on a long haul flight, but for months. I mean, if people let off wind or something, or they go to the toilet, there's nowhere for those smells to disappear to.
Not only that, there's a real distinct lack of water, and without going into graphic detail about the toilet that they show us, it's immaculate. It's like the thing's never been used.
Yeah, it's cleaner than my cabin.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a good thing to go for instead of just dancing around going the earth's flat, the earth's flat. It's a bit, which is obviously too much for nearly everyone. I mean, it's nearly too much for me, and I'm quite an open guy. Is to maybe look at these things like the space station and dissect them, and just dissect these bricks, sort of unbuild the house before we build the new house for people. Because if we make the ball earth model look so silly, that's a good thing. That's going to help.
Have you seen any of Tiger Dan's videos and ideas on things like anti-gravity?
Wasn't there a new term for gravity? I get sent a lot of stuff. I got sent a video this week called pressure density or something. Pressure and density. Someone come up with a new word. The last thing I saw of Tiger Dan was a hip hop rap he did, and I was asking him not to give up his day job, really.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's one of those. It's great, slightly cringeworthy, but he's getting the information out there, and that's all that counts, really.
Yeah, totally. He's having fun and being creative. I'm only playing. It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great theories, but that's essentially all they are. Where we can win is by pointing out where there are obvious fails, as opposed to theorizing about how they're doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, now we've covered a little bit of the ESA footage. While I get control of my mouse, which isn't crikey.
I brought the CIA Archons with me again. I apologise.
Yeah, that's it. I have trouble on every show. I mean, just before the show went out, we may as well discuss this. I must have sent you 6 or 7 invites to try and get you on the show, and none of them were successful, were they?
No, I had the same as Zanny a few weeks ago. Just couldn't connect on Google Hangouts.
I mean, one thing I haven't got, just to change the subject slightly, was have you ever held any religious beliefs?
Not in any silo religion, really, but I mean, I've studied Kabbalah very deeply, Hermetic Kabbalah. I spent like 3-4 years studying that. Uh, years ago, I was studying the truth movement stuff, and everyone was sort of pointing at Hermetic Kabbalah as something that was bad and evil. So I took that as a line of research and ending up falling in love with a lot of it. But I've also studied Zen, Taoism, Buddhism. I've studied a wide range of different theosophy and theology. So I don't like to label myself. Don't like to label myself as anything, but I'm pretty well studied in a lot of things, and I have my own morning practice, which tends to vary. A bit of sacredness each morning I like, and a little meditation when I can.
I mean, in some of your videos, you talk about things like cleansing chakras. I mean, can you give us a little bit of an expansion on what you're actually talking about? I'm very vague about that sort of topic.
Yeah, sure. I mean, different theosophies have different energy centers within the body. They don't really look at the body as they look at the etheric body, the astral body, for want of better words, where there's energy centers in the body. So the Chinese Taoist system would sort of say there's thousands of meridians and 5 elements within the body linking to the 5 major organs. The chakras are more of a Hindu system. They'll look at there being 7 chakras from the base of the spine to the top of the head. And they would sort of say in today's world, most people are stuck in the lower chakras, which is sort of survival, dense, low frequency. And, the elite, should we say, are not allowing us to go up to this heart chakra or this third eye insight or this sort of connected to divinity crown chakra. So the chakras are very big in sort of Hindu theosophy and have sort of branched into sort of New Age yoga realms as well.
I mean, with things like Buddhism, are there connections to flat Earth? With Christianity, there's obviously biblical references that people draw all the time, but in your other research into things like Buddhism, were there any flat Earth connections that were really obvious?
Yeah, I mean, I know one guy I was in touch with for a while. He's quite a deep Buddhist, and he said there's a sutra somewhere where, I mean, the sutras are where Buddha actually talked to people. In nature somewhere, you'd have people sitting around him, he would talk, and they got written as the sutras. There's apparently a sutra where the Buddha says that the world's flat. I have yet to locate it, but in a lot of ancient Buddhist work, especially Tibetan, Chinese, and even Thai Buddhism, there is talk of the Earth being flat. They talk of 4 continents on a flat disk, where humans live on one of these 4 continents. So they talk about the land. This is very interesting. And above this disk is higher spiritual realms, and below this disk is darker underworld, sort of hell worlds, for want of a better word. But in modern
very similar themes then to Christianity, with heaven and hell and such.
For sure, yeah. They would call it like demonic realms, higher realms. Yeah, just different words for the same sort of concept. But modern day Buddhism, if you spoke to any of the major groups in modern day Buddhism, they'll sort of say, no, the Earth's not flat. Science has proved that wrong.
Right. I mean, where you are now, I mean, obviously the people watching can see that you're in an absolutely idyllic setting, but I know you've used the term before, off-grid. So why and when did you decide to go, quote unquote, off-grid?
It was about 10 years ago. It was a culmination of quite a few things that came to a head in my life. It was basically I worked in the same career for 12, 13 years, and I got quite high up, should we say, and I realized it was complete nonsense. People sitting in meetings, lying, playing games, politics. So the more money I got, the more responsibility, the more nonsense and childlike and rubbish it became. So I wanted to get out of that. I started researching. I think it was really one of the catalysts was realizing that the London bombings had the British government involved, and I made a decision never to pay any more tax to the UK government. That was one of my things, and I didn't want an alarm clock in my life, and I didn't want post in my life. I was getting really sick of every morning seeing post, like computerized letters. It wasn't like hi Mark from another human wanting to connect with me, like computerized letters with my sort of straw man name printed. And I just thought, these people just don't care about me. This is a computer letter that just wants money or my energy. And I just thought, I just don't want any more post in my life, and I don't want alarm clocks. So these things sort of led me on a bit of a journey. I was traveling for 4 or 5 years. I left my career, left everything, just went traveling. ended up having some pretty cool experiences, pretty life-changing experiences, and then sort of wanted to live off grid, and the right circumstances and situations just came to me really to allow that to happen.
So being off grid, obviously you've got
Yeah.
an internet connection. How do you keep up to date with current affairs and globe lies?
Well, off grid really, I suppose it may mean different things to different people, but really it means you don't really exist. You're not really on the electoral roll. You don't really have an electric company or a water company. So I rely on myself for water. It comes from the mountain, the electrics from the solar panels. There's no rent or mortgage. It's like I don't really get any post. I don't really have an address. So I don't really exist. I'm not on the electoral roll. And I like to look after my own health and my own responsibilities, like as a sovereign human being. So I'm trying to cut the system away from my life where I don't need it.
I mean, one of the words you used when you were on Patricia Steer's Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes show with Matrix Decode, you used the word nihilism. Is that something that you would possibly use to describe yourself?
Nihilism. I don't know nihilism. I know nihilism.
Maybe I misheard.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm totally in the dark. Maybe you can explain that to me.
To be honest, I'm like a kind of a weird guy. I try and stay away from describing myself with labels. I don't like to pigeonhole myself with labels and say, oh, I'm a this or I'm a that. And as soon as I feel that I'm becoming a this or a that, I tend to jump.
So you wouldn't call yourself a flat earther then?
I would, I suppose.
It's one of those, it's so obvious once you know that you can't really deny being a flat earther once you kind of know what's what.
Yeah, it just makes the ball earth look, as each day goes past, the ball model just looks like more of a train wreck.
I mean, maybe to rephrase the question then slightly, if everybody found out about flat earth, is there a danger of nihilism creeping into society in general, do you feel?
I've got a short story in note form. I've got a few short stories in note form, and one of them is the chaos in society it would create if there was a mass awakening to flat earth. The absolute disbelief and chaos in people's minds, the people not wanting to pay tax, the people not knowing who to trust, the actual major chaos that would create, because people love the handrails of society. They love the TV, they love the newspaper telling them what's on TV and what's going on with ISIS and all this nonsense. And with those handrails just being swept away, people would go a bit crazy, I think. I mean, to have like some sort of zombie apocalypse, because it's too much for a lot of people's minds. It would just blow their minds. They'd probably deny it mentally. They go, well, when I know a girl, this was many months ago, she said, well, maybe it is flat, but I like the ball and I'm staying with the ball.
I mean, exactly what my wife says.
Yeah.
Pretty much word for word, I like the ball.
Yes.
I mean, one of the other things that you said on Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes was that you felt that truthers became a bit less relevant. And I know Patricia Steer definitely agrees with you on this because they won't look at Flat Earth. Do you still stand by that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I used to look up to Michael Zarian a lot. Let's pick one of them, and he did an interview recently. He was asked the flat earth question and he just completely dodged it. So he's become pretty irrelevant. David Icke was asked the question and just said, well, it could be anything. It could be a hexagon, it could be anything you want it to be, which is kind of a contradiction in his philosophy, because he says, well, the moon's a spaceship run by lizards. So these truthers have been asked the question and they're giving very naff answers. Like today was very, very good because I saw Santos Bonacci's come out and that finally done a long chat about flat earth. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't.
And he's got a very big following due to his astrology and astrotheology work. And he's actually come out and he's really pushing the flat earth thing. So he's one guy that's really come on board. But a lot of these other truthers, I mean, people like Alex Jones are just Mickey Mouse anyway. I mean, who is there out there? I don't know what's going on.
David Icke as well. Similar rubbish answers. It's all descending into the metaphysical, and like you say, it could be a hexagon. That's the kind of nonsense that these truthers come out with, isn't it?
I've been looking at truth stuff for like 10 years. I wrote my first book, many years ago, and I would say this flat Earth group of people. There's some really smart people, really open, conscious, awake. Really smart people in there. There's a lot of free man people. There's a lot of those hoax people in there as well. Some really good people coming together, and maybe this is where things are going to change in the truth movement for sure.
But as
It's
you said
going to.
earlier, even when you get a really logical person, I mean, I watched a few of Morgul's videos. I'm a really big fan of the Morgul, even though, if I'm honest, his knowledge is a little bit intimidating for me. But he will lay it out in no uncertain terms and leave no stone unturned. And yet people will still come back to him with the same old arguments and ignore his very coherent points. I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's cognitive dissonance. It's not wanting to let go of the handrails. It's like trying to persuade ballers is hard. It's like going into a church and trying to explain like a literal Christian, a literal Bibleist Christian, that multidimensional experience exists, because they're not going to believe you no matter what you say or what evidence you provide. Maybe the job isn't to go around trying to change people's minds. Maybe it's karmic. Maybe some people aren't supposed to wake up to certain info.
It's an interesting one.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you think people who actually are in this arena, I'm not going to call it the flat earth movement because I'm sure I'll get a load of stick over it, but
bad stick for that, yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Should we call it the cult, the flat earth cult?
No, definitely not.
Definitely not.
I mean, why do you think they descend into name calling and saying that other people are shills? Where do you think that comes from?
I think there's an ego thing going on. I think maybe there's some young guys in Hicksville in the back end of nowhere, and all of a sudden they sort of become someone. They got a Facebook group with like 200 people, and they get an ego hit off that, and then they're like trying to shoot other people down. I mean, I say to Ben, like, Facebook's like the Bronx. It's like the Bronx on Facebook groups. It's like fighting every day. It's like walking down the Bronx at 2 a.m. going on the Facebook groups. There's like fallouts every day. And this is obviously there are
Flat Earth or Facebook.
Flat Earth on Facebook, like the Flat Earth Facebook groups. It's just chaos in there.
What I mean is, do you think Facebook in general does that?
No, I think there's people in there to divide it. I think there's people in there who you wouldn't suspect who are in there. I mean, for instance, there's loads of new Facebook groups made every week, and I'm automatically added to loads of them, so it dilutes my newsfeed. I don't know where to find people because it's so saturated and diluted and fragmented. Now, I mentioned this a few months ago to a few people and said maybe we should create 6 groups that are like brothers, and the one looks at Antarctica, one that looks at the North Pole, one looks at curvature, one looks at space, something like that. And everyone said, no, I like my group. And everyone was like, no. And now we've ended up in this big mess that I said would happen. Massive fragmentation, massive dilution.
Yeah. I mean, you have plenty of hospital attendees in the Flat Earth Hospital, and you've got people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Brian Cox. How much Flat Earth information do you think they have, if any?
That's a really interesting question. It could be one of two ways. They could be in the gang and they totally know it's flat, and they're just on the payroll, like actors, agent actors, to dish out the ball, or the other thing, where they don't know anything about flat Earth, they just call it nonsense, and they're just totally mind controlled themselves into the science, worship science is God sort of energy. Could be one or the other, and it's almost impossible to tell.
Yeah, that's it. It's impossible to know, but I ask because so many people will sort of point at people like Brian Cox and say the words, he's a liar. And you think, well, is he a liar? 99% of people will spout this as truth, and they have no idea that it's in any way a lie. And I'm sure Neil deGrasse Tyson and Brian Cox are exactly the same.
If I had to guess, I would say Brian Cox thinks he's telling the truth.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, I don't think he's deliberately lying.
But with Brian Cox, it could be possible that the BBC Illuminati gang, the people in the BBC, like that gang at the top of the BBC, who we all know and we know what they get up to, he could be like a little slave of them. I wouldn't rule that out. He's got that sort of energy.
No. It's moving on a little bit. We've got aliens in the heliocentric model now being a mathematical certainty. What's your feelings when it comes to aliens?
Well, again, aliens is a word that brings up different things in different people's minds. I don't believe in physical 3D nuts and bolts aliens, but how far do I go with this? I've had some experiences where I believe in multidimensional things able to come into this frequency for a short time. Like, I don't know if you've looked into alien abductions. I mean, there are thousands of cases of alien abductions, and most of these are a DMT release within the brain, where the human's frequency goes up a bit, and the other being can come. So this human can go out of this frequency a bit up, and this other being can come down. So they have this sort of interaction. So I believe in entities. I mean, in Hebrew, they'd say the word angel, which really just means astral messenger. I believe in other energies beyond the veil, but I don't believe in 3D spaceships, metal, UFO, nuts and bolts, flesh and bone aliens from other planets.
So did you see the Black Knight Decoded Pepsi advert? It may be something that slipped you by.
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, so Pepsi did an advert called Black Knight Decoded. Now, I'm sure you're aware of the Black Knight, and basically what Pepsi alluded to was that, or the story was that a guy was trying to send out a message via social networking to say that he had decoded the information that was contained within the Black Knight, and the Black Knight was full of aliens and in a position essentially to attack us. They're watching over us, but with sinister music, it made it sound like they were an evil entity watching over the earth, ready to attack us at any moment. And then in order to sell Pepsi, of course, the entire human race unites in logos and hand-holding and fireworks, and it turns into the happy-go-lucky music that you get on one of these Pepsi adverts.
But each theosophy, each theology around the world all talks of other entities, other energies. So in sort of Christianity and Gnostic books, you'll have like the archons and angels. In Sufi Islamic documents, you'll have like the jinn, which would be the equivalent of the archons. In Hinduism, I mean, you've got thousands. In Buddhism, you've got, you know, hundreds of deity. Within the Kabbalistic framework, you've got scores of deity. So a lot of these different traditions have like an angelic system, and that you can invoke or evoke.
I mean, the jinn was one, I'm sure it came up in either when I was studying dreams or looking at the conspiracies behind dreams. But am I right in saying that the jinn is now modern spin for genies?
I think the word Jinn is like an Islamic word for like a dark energy, like a low astral parasite, something that can, you know, feed on energy of humans. But I don't believe in aliens, going back to the original question, but I do believe in entities and other intelligence.
I mean, the archons is something that Rob Skeever has gone into in fairly great detail. Are you a fan of Rob Skeever and his work on things like the archons?
I think he does some very good work, yeah.
I mean, again, on another YouTuber, just so we keep this flat Earth, because if we keep on the subject of aliens, we might lose a few flat Earth viewers. Did you see Brian Mullen's most recent video?
No, I haven't. What was that about, Nathan?
Absolutely superb. By far and away one of my favourite YouTubers in terms of providing people with globe Earth debunkings and flat Earth proof. His most recent video is called Force the Line, and I'll do my best to explain what he actually explains in that video. His idea is to put together, if you imagine a fence with two levels, one above the other, and maybe making this fence about 2 or 3 miles long, if not longer, and the bottom rung of the fence would be joined. So you reference the first at a perfect horizontal position, and then every single adjoining fence joins with a very perfect 90-degree angle. In other words, the bottom rung, no matter how far you go, is always referenced to the very, very first bottom rung. And then the rung above that, the top rung, is leveled with a spirit level. So in other words, the top rung, according to Ball Earth maths, is referencing gravity, and the bottom rung is always in reference to the very, very first rung for miles and miles. The idea being that if we live in a concave Earth, they'll get further and further apart as you go further. If we live on the flat Earth, they will stay completely parallel. And if we live on a ball, they'll get closer and closer together the further you go. I mean, it's simple, but so elegant.
Nice, I'll check that out.
Did you see his sort of gravity debunking videos?
I've watched so many videos over the past few months. I can't recall that off the top of my head, but I may have done.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Mullen is it's for people who aren't necessarily into maths, it's still worth a watch, because it may be heavy going, but he's laying it all out. He's doing the work for you on the whiteboard and then telling you, so you don't actually have to do a thing except listen. But he essentially debunks gravity and points out where it ignores mass and just balances with every other.
The gravity is a big hoax. I did an article called "Gravity's a Hoax." It had thousands of hits, and it just doesn't. The graviton just doesn't exist. And I did an image that's quite powerful. You've got an upside down cargo ship in Australia. A boat, one of these massive cargo boats, upside down, and gravity's holding all the water, the big metal boat, all those cargo containers. But then you could just blow a dandelion, and it just beautifully pitters into the air. I mean, that's gravity debunked there and then. That's it. Without
I've heard
into
of
crazy maths.
Some gravitons that you can buy on the black market, though. Have you heard of these?
Yeah, they're mental.
Tell us a little bit about the gravitons you can buy on the black market.
Well, there's an advert on Ferro. We got approached by some dodgy geezers, and they wanted an advert on Ferro. So they've got a big stack of gravitons. They're little tablets, and you can take them. They said, don't double drop. Do half, maybe, if it's your first time.
Just have a graviton.
And you can have a bit of an experience where you see stuff that doesn't exist, like gravity and curvature.
I mean, I know you said you don't necessarily like to speculate too much, but with anybody who's coming into this arena for the first time, they're going to have things like space and the ball Earth completely ripped away from them and left with no answers replacing them. So no matter whether we like it or not, at some point we have to theorize in order to move forward. What's your best guess when it comes to things like infinite plane or dome?
I'm a little bit more leaning to the dome. Reasons are, I presented in The Edge of Awakening documentary that's had about 180,000 hits, gone a bit crazy. And I did a few chapters on the dome. I'm not completely closed off to the infinite plane. I'm not closed off to it being, we're just not going to know. And that's a mystical thing within this reality construct. These are edges of the reality construct, and maybe we're just not ever supposed to know, and we're just supposed to revel in the mystery. And that's another option that seems to be growing within me. But at the present, I would lean more towards the dome than the infinite plane. But I think maybe there are edges we're just never going to know, and it's part of the framework. And we're just supposed to revel in the mystery a little bit. Because within the flat Earth world, there's a lot of rational male minds who are like, I need to know everything. I need to know everything. Because in today's world, there are men walking around, much more than women. There are a lot of men walking around who think they know everything. Seriously, they think, I know why I'm here. I know what that's doing in the sky. I know that. There are men who think they know everything. And that's like the most narcissistic, that's like crazy narcissism plus. And you really should be quarantined or something, because that's kind of scary.
You're uncovering in your videos information that gets expanded on all the time. I mean, I think the most recent example was the Libyan glass that Tiger Dan expanded on your theory from. Can you tell us a little bit about that, or tell the audience a little bit about Libyan glass? Yeah,
I mean, some people think there could be a layer of glass around 100 kilometers up for many reasons. And there's a couple of places on Earth, but mainly Libya and Egypt, where all this sort of glass is found. It's not organic to the local area, but it's also a really strong glass that you can't find anywhere else, where humans can't make it. It's got a melting point of something like 3 times higher than a man-made glass. No one knows what it is or where it comes from. So a lot of people in the flat Earth community think it could be from the sky. So Libyan glass is another mystery.
Tiger Dan's expansion on that theory, though? Tiger Dan was basically saying that not just coming from the sky, it could potentially be, I'm going to boil this down really badly now, but part of the light bulb glass that surrounds the sun. Would you buy into that?
I wouldn't buy into that without any more backing of that. But it's really healthy that people are coming up with different ideas and speculating, because I would say it's quite shilly for people to say, no, we just need to stay here with the facts and sit on our chairs and not go anywhere. I think it's really healthy that people are running around with their imaginations and coming back to the table saying, well, I had this idea, and I'm not saying it's 100% right, but what do you think about this, people? I think that takes courage, and I think it's healthy, and I think we need that, because without speculation, we're not going to get anywhere. Without ideas.
The trolls love attacking it as well. When people speculate, it's like, I think Patricia Steer said, we shouldn't have to pepper every word we say with, this is just a theory and this is just my opinion. But it seems that's the case. We have to say those words, or else we'll be attacked as presenting it as proof when we know full well it isn't.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like we're at a blank canvas, because we don't trust NASA, we don't trust ESA, we don't trust the government for loads of reasons that we could talk for hours. So all that has got to be whipped away. So we've kind of got a blank canvas, and we're going back to what can I see with my eyes?
You know, you're out in Spain. Is the FE prevalent in Spain? Is it predominantly, do you think, an English language, something that people in the English language arena are addressing, or is it prevalent in Spain as well?
It's a good question. I mean, it's very much, a lot of the truth stuff is very much English language. I mean, I've got some friends who are Spanish and Italian and other countries. They're a long way behind. They're like, oh yeah, I think the banks are bad. Have you heard about the central banks? Yeah, I think they're a bit corrupt. I mean, they're a long way behind. But I know this guy in Chile, and we had a little chat, and I said, let's create a Facebook group in Spanish called Tierra Plano, and see what happens. And it's been gone crazy. We've got like 700 people in there.
Really?
And they're posting loads of stuff every day. Bam, 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 like memes, Spanish. So if anyone's listening and they know some Spanish people, get them to check out Tierra Plano on Facebook. So that's been surprising for me.
I mean, I'm asking something that you may not know the answer to here, but in terms of Catholicism in Spain, I know they don't necessarily talk about it openly as individuals, and you have sort of public announcements from the religious groups in Spain. Has it been like the same as every other mainstream media? Have they completely ignored it?
Yeah, I mean, Spanish TV and media is like the nation's not really sitting into that like it does in maybe England or Germany or America. The Spanish nation aren't really close to the TV. But I mean, Catholicism in Southern Europe is very much just peddling a lot of fear and guilt. When you walk into a church, it's my personal opinion, I don't feel good energy when I go into. I like going into churches. I like to see what's in there. I like to look at symbolism. When I go into a church in Southern Europe, I tend to feel a lot of pain, a lot of fear, and a lot of guilt. People praying like, "Oh, please fix my brother." Why is a God's going to fix your brother more than anyone else? Because you're praying harder? It's just I just find it all very strange.
So is it something you believe in? I think I've asked a couple of guests this, but God and the devil, do you buy that?
I believe in a creator or creators. I believe in higher intelligence. And I do believe that there are dark energies at work as well. And some of them are feeding on humanity's helplessness and disdain. And, you know, there are a lot of people walking around not believing in a soul. So therefore, their souls are going to get munched on for lunch.
These are the people who buy into the religion that is science.
Yeah, I think atheism is probably not a super healthy place for one's energy, because if you're walking around thinking you're here once, just one life, completely random, kind of creates kind of a weird human, and probably rife for a lot of people who are like doing well in capitalism. They're like, oh, I want loads of money, I want loads of companies. Nearly all of those people are like strong atheists.
Yeah, or anti-God in some cases.
Yeah, they'd be like, oh, don't bring up that God rubbish. You know, that real sort of hard atheist energy. I would say in England, there's more atheists per person, percentage than almost any country on the planet. England's super strong atheism.
Definitely.
Would you agree?
Yes, most definitely. Some of my family are atheists, although I've got some very heavily Christian family as well, but some of them are pure atheists and won't ever change regardless of what you say to them.
Yeah, I remember an atheist saying to me, oh, when I die, it's all just going to go black. And I said, well, black isn't nothing, is it? Black isn't no thing. I got quite angry.
Good point. We've looked a little bit at sort of debunking ball Earth, but in flat Earth, what are the values that you hold as true, or what are the proofs that you sort of will reference if people are asking you why you think the Earth is flat?
It depends what mood I'm in, what ones I bring up. It's like an arsenal. It's like a bag full of like 50, and it just depends what mood I'm in. I mean, generally it'll just be like the standard few, curvature, horizon, Antarctic, NASA, space, just the standard ones. Or come out with something really obscure, like an eclipse, and just really spin people out. It just depends what mood I'm in. If I'm in a playful mood, I'll bring up something really weird and crazy.
Well, let's stick with that one then. If you think the eclipses are really weird and crazy, I don't know which one you mean, blood moon or solar eclipse, but
it's like the solar eclipse. You can talk to a baller and say, okay, you believe that the moon's here and quite small, and that the sun's 400 times away and 400 times bigger. Say you're viewing from here. You believe that's a coincidence that they appear to your eye as the same size in the sky. And these atheist ballers, they will say, Yeah, that's a complete coincidence. And you look at them and you say, "Are you sure about that?" And something inside them wobbles every time because they know that's nonsense. You know that's nonsense. It's just nonsense. The odds of that in the world of universe probability, in this random Big Bang mess that they come up with, the odds of that solar eclipse being a coincidence, I mean, you're looking at billions to one, maybe
It's complete
trillions.
nonsense.
This is complete nonsense.
We
So
may as well rattle through the rest of your arsenal, as this is a flat Earth show. But you started off with the curve.
to be honest, I don't engage much anymore, Nathan. I mean, a few months ago, I'd be like really there, going, yeah, this one, this one, this one. But I don't engage really. I just got too much work on that I want to do, creative work, and engaging with ballers. I just don't really bother anymore, unless it's like a friend of a friend, and I'm feeling quite playful, because they'll just slow me down. I've just got a lot of stuff I want to do. It's like I get a lot of emails every week from ballers, and I'll tend to send them to flat earthy, spherical earth. So I'm not.
You'll point them in the direction of somebody who is doing that while you focus on taking the mickey.
Or watch one of my older videos. You know, I mean, I did a video from Spain where you can see Algeria. It's like 95 miles away on a clear day. I mean, it should be like 2 kilometers below the curve, below the horizon. That's game, set, and match there. And if you tell someone that and they don't get that, there's no point in talking to them anymore.
Yeah, I got the same when ever since I've become a flat earther, I've been trying to find out from my brother and his wife what's been convincing them they still live on a globe, and I finally got it out of them a few days ago, and it was the Foucault pendulum. And I thought, of all the poor proofs of the globe,
I'm just doing a bit of a Patricia Steer thing here. The cat in the image.
How does that cat manage to keep away from the chickens?
These are Maine Coons. They're quite friendly. They're quite peaceful cats.
So far, if you're not going to sort of go through all your arsenal of flat Earth proofs, have there been any flat Earth theories that have turned into confirmations for you?
Any flat Earth theories that have turned into confirmations? No, I mean, the Dark Rift video I did is quite out there. I looked at a lot of ancient myth. I mean, that's a theory that can only turn to fact one way. That's if the Dark Rift actually moves, wobbles, or opens. I suppose the theory that the moon lights itself was sort of, I studied that for a while and I wrote a moon book. So the moon lighting itself was a theory that I ended up looking into, and became a fact for me that the moon lights itself and delights itself.
Did you do any specific tests on it yourself?
I didn't do any actual nuts and bolts experiments. It was done with a lot of research and contemplation, as opposed to here's a test 1, test 2. But all those findings are in a free to download ebook on WaykiWayki.com.
Sure. I mean, the other thing that you touch on in quite a few of your videos is, I hope I get this right way around now, astrology as opposed to astronomy.
Yeah.
Is that something that you would stand behind?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's something. I was in a mystery school some years ago, sort of living in that sort of reality for a year and a half or so. I learned a lot about astrology, and I know how it sounds to most people like complete nonsense. It's not telling the future. I mean, let's rule that out straight away. I mean, the elite use things like Mystic Meg and Russell Grant to make it look silly, but astrology is an ancient science by some very smart people. I mean, you can go back to Babylonia, the Chaldeans, really smart people. Hey, cat. And astrology is a science. And I mean, I could grab anyone's natal chart and I could tell you stuff that would make you go, wow, yeah, that's right.
Sorry, what chart? Grab their what chart?
Right. When each human being's born, it's called a natal chart. The moment you're born, the wandering stars and the sun and the moon are in a specific place. So the sun, you could say, is your personality, your vitality. The moon is your subconscious, your emotions. Mars is your action, your energy, your courage. Venus is your sort of grace, your artistic talents, your musical talents, your attraction. Mercury is like your thinking. So each planet has a human archetypes within it. And you can look at where these were when you were born and the geometry between them in what is known as aspects, and you can tell a lot about yourself, what sort of talents you have, what sort of patterns will be repeated, what challenges that you'll come across. And I've done over 150 natal charts, and I mean, this is science. This is a pure science, and obviously I can't tell that to someone. I'd have to show someone. But I'm working with clients at the moment, the past few weeks, past few months, and they all seem very happy with what I'm coming up with.
And it's based on the movements. Again, I'm totally poorly educated in this, but from what I understand, it's a flat Earth science. Is that correct?
It is a flat Earth science, but it works on the ball model and it works on the flat model. There are some small changes with the flat model that I presented in a video. I'd say it gives to 5 to 10% difference. It's just such a great science, you know. I wouldn't live without astrology. Someone said to me, here's £1 million, but you're not allowed to use astrology in your life again. I'd say keep your £1 million, because this is a gift. This is a real gift.
I'm going to go on to the lighter side of flat Earth now and talk a little bit about Flat Earth Rebel Outpost. Even though some of it does tackle some quite serious subjects, it's all done with a bit of tongue in cheek. Can you tell us a little bit about your most recent episode without me bursting into laughing?
Episode 4. I've got so much in my head, so many different projects. Episode 4, we did the Flat Earth helpline, didn't we? The hospital helpline. Episode 4 was great. I mean, Ben will agree with me, and unfortunately he's not here, so he can't speak as well. Episode 4, I think we got better each episode. Things progressed and got bigger and more varied, and we learned about each other more and how we work together. And episode 4, we really went for it. We really pushed the boundaries, I feel. It was just so much fun to make. It's just brilliant. So we pushed the hospital to do the helpline, and Patricia came in, and Eric obviously told everyone his true roots. And we did I like loads of episodes. I like the Illuminati University did their little Halloween offering where they burnt a man alive. Yeah, some really cool bits in there. And the ninjas did a bit of a shamanic journey.
You also had Flat Fiction.
Flat Fiction was one of my favourite ones, Reservoir Dogs.
That was superb.
You're going to tell me out of the blue who's the shill? I mean, I was laughing about that for days. I'd wake up in the morning and start laughing because of that. It's just so fun. So if anyone else out there finds that funny, that to me is amazing. It's like, because I've had so much fun with that. It's not like, oh, we want to make something and really make other people laugh. We're doing it because we find it really funny and we have a laugh. And if other people find it funny, that's like a bonus.
But you touched on two things that I was getting frustrated with because I was getting nowhere. But you, on I think it was number 3 and number 4 Flat Earth Rebel Outpost, really brought home what I'd found, which was nothing. So in the case of things like satellites, you were phoning up the different agencies in number 3 and saying, tell us a little bit about satellites. And they didn't.
On that show, that's trimmed down. I mean, I actually made more calls, but there just wasn't anything extra in them to put in the show. Or the show would be like 40 minutes of phones ringing, dead answer machines. Oh, sorry, call back later. I mean, that's trimmed down. I phoned up ESA because I studied their what they call Sentinel-1, Sentinel-2 satellites that are apparently weather satellites. All we've got online is animation of them. They announced some photos from these satellites. And these satellites are supposed to be like 500 kilometers up. But these satellites, the photos look like they're 30 kilometers up. So I wanted to phone them up and say, what sort of zoom lens are you using to go from 500 kilometers to make a photo look like it's from 30 kilometers? Because on Google Earth or Google Maps, it looks like it's 30 kilometers up, the photo. But in fact, it's 500 kilometers. So I phoned around there, loads of offices in Europe. Hello, can I speak to anyone who knows anything about these Sentinel satellites? Because I want to have a little talk with you. All they could do was put me through to media and PR people. There was like no one there. It was empty, just like the control room in the ESA hoax videos. It's all smoke and mirrors.
Do you think the same applies to the Antarctic race, which is the thing you covered in the 4th episode?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I phoned up. There's only one website on the whole internet that really talks about this Antarctic race. I phoned up the guy and said, I want to ask you about it. He said, I don't know anything about it. I said, it's on your website. He says, yeah. I said, do you know anything about it? He goes, no. It's just, it's all. This is what we're learning. We're learning that this framework of this system, this reality we've been led to believe, is just gatekeepers and images. And when we actually speak and prod one of these edges of this sort of lying system, there's nothing there. It's just like a paper mache thing you can just push over.
Yeah, it occurred to me when I don't know what my most recent video I used the thumbnail for it was, but Windows itself, as in Microsoft Windows, you kind of think of the metaphor that's creating. You're looking through a window on life through your computer and your phone and your tablet, not through a real window, not at reality.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be a Microsoft certified professional. I know how Windows works quite well. And when Windows 7 came out, all they did was create more hooks in the back so the agencies can get in there. I mean, they can take over your microphone and your webcam and all sorts. So that's all Windows 7 was really from Windows XP. They just put more hooks in there.
But they tell people, I mean, people get up in arms about this and say, oh, I can't believe they're doing this and they're getting access. It's like, well, you've given them permission. You tick the tick box.
Yeah,
Windows agreement.
I did a blog about Windows 10, or it was on a video I did, Windows 10 terms and conditions. It basically says at any time we can control your camera or your microphone, any time of our choice.
Yeah, I disconnect mine. I don't have the mic or the camera ever linked up unless, like now, and as soon as I do, everything goes wrong. Mouse stops working, camera starts disconnecting.
You've got to be on the list, Nathan. You're for sure on the list.
Probably. I mean, I asked this question to Jaron, and I kind of asked him, how much of your stuff do you think NASA watches? And he said, well, I don't think very much. I think they're so big-headed that they don't think it's an issue. But I don't think I agree. I think that most, if not all of us, they've got their eyes on us. They've got enough money to do it.
This is a really good subject matter of conversation. I mean, it does seem that since the flat Earth growth, since, what should we say, March, that's when it really ramped up. Is that, I mean, you look now, there's NASA TV, ESA are really pushing it. I mean, I looked on NASA TV today, they've got a schedule of programs this week. I mean, they're really going for it. NASA are really like, the mainstream press in the UK are all behind this Tim Peake. I got an email of someone who said their children at school got forced, the whole school got forced into the hall, the assembly hall, and they all watched Tim Peake live during the ISS.
On the TV.
In my ESA Hoax Part 3, I expose one of the guys who works for the UK Space Agency, and he talks about an experiment going on in the school curriculum where they're going to bring space into the classroom.
Oh, right. So it's not going to be, physics and biology. It's going to be space.
They're going to be really pushing it because, and there's only one reason they're doing that, is because of the flat earthers really exposing stuff, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the whole thing.
Catching on.
That was the whole reason for the CIA characters in Flat Earth Rebel Outpost. They're employed to try and stop this flat Earth thing.
Yeah, I don't think they're succeeding. I mean, I worry that, when you hear people talking about sort of biblical references that do tie into now, one of the quotes my uncle gave was, before Armageddon or the second coming or whatever, he said, well, the Bible says the earth will fold up. What the hell does that mean? Well, he didn't say hell, but he said, what does that mean? And I said, well, you could take it literally, as in the flat earth is now a ball, i.e. it literally has folded itself up, which is kind of disconcerting when you think it follows a parallel with predictions that the Bible makes. I mean, do you get at all scared about the expansion of flat earth?
I don't get scared about it. No, I think it's quite exciting. Yeah, I don't. I'm happy to take one for the team, I'm happy to live by my truths and my honor's more important to me than my life, So like, I'm happy to stay on my integrity, and whatever happens with that happens,
Yeah, I think you kind of answered this earlier. What's your main purpose then? I know you said it was sort of for yourself, but obviously you're making videos and putting this information out into not into the mainstream, but into people's minds in some small way through YouTube. What's the purpose behind that?
I don't know. I think there's no real purpose. It's more like I've got a strong motivation to write, and I'm really anti-deception and I'm really pro-truth. So those things together end up with different forms of output, whether that be ESA hoax videos or, I would say I do quite a different range of stuff. So my output is generally from a motivation that is pro-creativity, anti-deception, pro-truth, and pro-divinity, and pro-sacredness, and pro-authenticity, and anti-synthetic. You know, so all these things create a motivation which pumps out different output. But there's no actual, I don't have an end goal, there's no purpose. It's more like there's a strong motivation, and that results in different work somehow spinning out of me.
I mean, do you get behind people who have got an end goal? I know Math Powerland is obviously looking to visit Antarctica and dispel the myths and decide, you know, or figure out whether or not it's a ball or an infinite plane, or even, you know, if we're on the inside of a ball. And you've got people like the Morgile, who literally in the last couple of days has released a petition to try and get or abolish the Antarctic Treaty. Are they things that you can get behind, or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not going to go to Antarctica because I'm not too big on the cold. And as I exposed, it's $48,000 to go to the South Pole if you do.
I was just about to come on to that.
Channels. Yeah, but these are things I'd support and should really champion. I mean, but there again, I get sent a lot of stuff each week that people are like, "Can you put this online? Oh, can you paste this? Can you copy this around?" I'm bombarded with stuff. But yeah, these are things. I mean, I didn't know about the Morgul thing, so yeah, that sounds really interesting. But I do have a view. I mean, trying to get the Antarctica Treaty taken down, it's a bit like protesting in the street about tax. It's very hard to change the system from within it just by saying you're rubbish, you're bad, and petitions and marching and protesting. These aren't things I really put my energy into, but I have no problem with others that do.
No, so you've no ambitions to go to Antarctica or fly up to the dome, but where do you see yourself in a year's time?
That's a really good question. I ultimately want to write some short stories and scripts. That's what I'm really feeling within me, but I'm not going to be able to do that for a while. But I'm feeling that, and I'd like to explore these sort of flat earth questions maybe through shamanic ways, through the inner world as opposed to through the outer world. That's something that interests me. So yeah, more writing, whether that ends up being a video or an article or a story, but some form of writing.
You've got a flat earth product, which I've got next to me.
Yeah.
So you've got your flat earth keychains.
Yay!
Very cool indeed.
Woo.
Where did you get the idea for that?
I was on a boat with my sister, who already has a business with an online basket. You know, so she's already got a post office and dispatch and an online buying system. And she visited Spain. We were on a boat. And the idea just came to me, and she was on board, and yeah, and it just happened. And I got in touch with some people. I had a design. They did a prototype, and I was like, yeah, give me a load of them, and just went for it.
I mean, I love all that. I mean, again, it gets knocked by people who say, well, you're trying to make a profit out of flat earth, which I think is ludicrous.
I mean, the amount of time I put in, and you know, I took a risk on it. That's my risk, my financial risk, my time risk. It's my design. No one has to buy it. I'm not really promoting them hard. I'm not pushing them. If someone wants one, they can buy one. You know, that's it. You don't have to. I'm not a pusher. I don't really care if you buy one or not. But yeah, they're cool. They're a good talking point. They're discreet. I find they sort of remind you each day. You put your key in the door. You're like, yeah, flat earth, divinity. It's like a subtle personal thing.
Yeah, but I've had a few people say, what's that? And it's normally people who, well, like my family, who I've told all about flat earth. And
these people, sorry.
I was just about to say that they've no idea, you know, that they assume that you're going to fall off the edge. And it's only when you can hold up something like that keyring that you can say, no.
For sure, it really helps with discussion. Some people are visual, a lot of people are visual, and they can't really get the image just from words. But a lot of people who say, going back to that point, oh, you're trying to make money from flat earth. A lot of these people make money from working in an office for a company that has a toxic output. So these people are like, you're making money out of flat earth. What? And what do you do Monday to Friday? Oh, I work in a toxic office for a really toxic company that like destroys the planet. Well, maybe you should look at yourself than other people. So I come across this sometimes.
You've given me a nice little segue into toxic people there. What's your feelings when it comes to psychopaths?
Yes, it's something I researched a while ago. I mean, if you're a CEO or in control of 100, 200 people as a manager, you've automatically got to have some sort of psychopathic tendencies. You've got to be a sort of psychopath. Like David Cameron looks kind of like nice, well-spoken, good at talking, total psychopath. The psychopath's not a guy with the knife like the Psycho movie. It's
No.
generally a CEO, a director, a shareholder, someone who loves that power and control. Like someone with over £10 million in the bank, or let's say 50 million. These really rich people are kind of psychopaths, because if you've got 50 million's enough for any human. You know, you can look after all your grandkids, villas, planes, helicopters, everything you ever want, and for all your grandkids. Like these people with $1 billion, $2 billion, $4 billion. I mean, these people they're complete toxic psychopaths. You have to be. If you look around the world around you and you're hoarding that much money, you're a complete psychopath, and you need to be quarantined. Really, you need to be like really healed. You need to be put into the Flat Earth Hospital, and you need some help.
Yeah, you get people like David Icke, who, again, this is just my opinion, but I feel that when he's talking about shapeshifters, that in reality he's just using a metaphor for psychopaths. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I'd also see that as a metaphor for dark evocation magic, where certain energies could be evoked into a ritual where some things could visually to the human eye change a little bit. So I think it's between those two metaphors, yeah. But David Icke, he's like, he's on stage preaching freedom. He lives in a big house in the Isle of Wight, which is very conservative, middle class energy. Yeah. But Icke had some really good info, like 8 years ago. He does have some good info up to a point, like banks, bloodlines, but then he sort of leads you the wrong way.
Yeah, which does make you wonder. It's like back to who's the American guy you mentioned a moment ago that you said was just total nonsense?
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones, it's back to the wicked lies. There's going to be a certain amount of real information that these people present you with, but twisted up with horrible, twisted lies.
Yeah, Ike's a strange one. He's just a bit of a strange one. I don't really know what he's into. I mean, years ago I read his books. They're all the same. I mean, I read 7 of his books. Tales of the Time Loop, all the other ones. They're all the same book. I mean, it's quite naughty to put duplicate information and sell another book that's basically the same. I mean, out of all Ike's books, if you read Tales of the Time Loop, you've practically read them all, except for the Moon one. They're very, very, very similar, and that's a bit naughty for an author to be doing that.
Well, we're coming up on our hour. I'm going to ask one final question, which is probably the big one for most people, which is, well, I won't lead you in any way. What are your feelings on NASA?
NASA is a military gatekeeper agency that's probably closely linked to the CIA. They gain $8 billion a year. They probably spend $10 million a year on their fireworks and their Masonic actors and their Masonic Photoshop crew. So NASA's basically a TV company. It's a production. It's like a theater. It's like a pantomime. So you've got people there. They're all in the know, pretty much all of them in the know. They've got giant fireworks, which is quite tough. They launch giant fireworks. They've got a group of actors. They're all probably Freemasons at quite a medium to high level. And it's a gang. It's a club. And this is a military. It's not a government agency like I can't think of one off the top of my head. But it's not a government agency. It's a military. It's a military organization. If you research the roots of NASA. And this is complete nonsense. They need exposing, and it doesn't matter if there's more and more people exposing NASA. It's all good because these people need to be taken out.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we've pretty much covered all of my questions. Was there anything you wanted to add before we wrap it up?
Where do you see things going, Nathan? In the Flat Earth community, you got any ideas where you see it's going, or?
I've got no idea. I'm totally ignorant. I mean, the only reason I do this is because the people who I have on, like yourself, know a lot more than I do. So asking the questions is far easier than answering them.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. It's really good.
It's been superb having you on the show. If you've got nothing else to add, I'll give a quick plug to your shows. So obviously WaykiWayki channel on YouTube and Flat Earth Rebel Outpost along with Matrix Decode. Mark Knight, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on Flat Earth UK. Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Nathan. The pleasure was all mine. To all of you who have joined us and have made lots of comments, I know a few of you have said that the feed has been stuttering. No surprise there. Back to the Archons. It's been a wonderful show. Thanks to Mark Knight. Thanks for watching. I've been Nathan Oakley. I'll see you all in the next video.